when the matter goes all the way to the Supreme Court, whatever happens, there's still a window. And that window is for the president. President Tinubu recently granted pardon, granted clemency, and all of that. I think whatever happens at the end of the day, that window is still open to the president of Nigeria in the national interest for peace. To then say, okay, this is the outcome, but the Nigerian government would grant this pardon. The pardon can now be commutal of sentence, it can be whatever, as the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy will decide. Right. So that's what I would recommend. I'm not saying that's what will happen.
Well, good morning to you, viewers. Let's begin what's trending by focusing on reactions trailing the life imprisonment sentence handed to the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, Nnamdiikanu, after he was convicted of terrorism by a federal high court in Abuja on Thursday. During the sentencing, Justice James Omotosho held that the prosecution successfully established every allegation brought forward, noting that Kanu offered no credible defense and deliberately refused to challenge the evidence presented. He described the IPOB leader as an international terrorist who pursued his agitation through brutal force and terrorism, causing the bloodshed of innocent citizens. The federal government's prosecutor had requested the death penalty, but the judge stated that he opted for life imprisonment to show mercy. The judge ordered that Kanu be placed in protective custody away from Kuje prison due to his unruly behavior during trial and banned him from using any electronic devices without supervision from the Office of the National Security Advisor.
Is that why you brought the cameras? Is that why you brought them today? Please. You didn't bring it before, you brought it today? Please. Show me where it says you can try me on a repeat law. Show me. Please. Show me where it says you can try me on a repeat law. I said show me. Show me. Show me. Get the microphone for kids. No, leave it. Leave it. Leave it. I said leave it. It's a court of law. I'm under trial. I'm under trial. I have to speak. What are you doing? Don't touch me. I'm very don't touch me. I'm warning you, don't touch me. I'm warning you, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. I said don't touch me. Smart people. You don't know law. Show me the law. Show me the law. Show me the law. You don't know law. They are nothing you. You're acting rubbish. Don't punish you. Now and forever. Let it be on record. Any judgment in this court is rubbish. Ask him where is the law. Where is the law? Where is the law?
Well, Nnamdiikanu was given a 7-count terrorism charge and sentenced to life imprisonment for counts 1, 4, 5, and 6 of the 7-count charge, while he received 20 years and 5 years on counts 3 and 7, respectively, all to run concurrently. The court described Kanu as unsuitable to remain in the company of sane minds. Meanwhile, outside the court, the lead prosecutor, Awomolo, delivered remarks after Kanu's sentencing, lauding the judge's decision. Speaking to the media, the prosecutor stated that this single decision has brought an end to injustice and oppression faced by people in the eastern states of Nigeria, adding that only now will they be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed. Let's take a look.
The judiciary has salvaged Nigeria from the claws, from the oppression of the proscribed IPOB. The court has also pronounced death sentence on Eastern Security Network, which was the military wing of IPOB. Today, God has brought an end to injustice, oppression, suffered by our brothers and sisters of the eastern states of Nigeria. They will not be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
Well, Aloy Ejimako, the legal counsel to Nnamdiikanu, has vowed to challenge a life sentence handed down to Kanu. The lawyer, in a strongly worded statement outside the court, declared that the verdict and sentence will not stand, insisting that Nnamdiikanu is not a terrorist.
You will not stand. Nobody is going to trample on me. Nobody is going to trample on Nnamdiikanu. Nnamdiikanu is not a terrorist. He's a man that was pursuing change. To pursue a separate nation of yours is not a crime. So in Nigeria today, if somebody says, don't be silly, you get convicted. Nnamdiikanu may broadcast, and so what? And you convict him for terrorism for mere words in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What kind of precedent is being laid? So from here, we are heading to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the only court in this country, or the next court in this country, that sits as a...
All right, Dr. Abati, reactions have trailed this ruling. I'd love your thoughts before I take the reactions.
Okay, we started with this subject this morning. We also had a session with Maxwell Okpara, one of Nnamdiikanu's lawyers. The first thing is one, there's a lot of emotions involved in this. All kinds of street commentators, getting very emotional. There's a lot of melodrama involved in the matter. But the reality is what the court has done.
Yeah.
The judgment is about 144 pages. Whoever is contesting that, the place to go is the Court of Appeal. The matter is not yet over.
Okay.
So Nnamdiikanu, no matter what has happened so far, can go to Court of Appeal. And when it gets to the Court of Appeal, my only fear is that the prosecutor may also cross appeal. Because even with the judgment given by Justice James Omotosho, Chief Awomolo SCN was still insisting that the punishment for death penalty, for the punishment for terrorism, treason, and all of that, within the purview of the terrorism law of 2013, as amended, is death sentence. So, so the drama has just begun. But I like the point that Maxwell Okpara made that, look, people should just give peace a chance. Let the process in the court be exhausted. But as I've seen, so many people have suddenly become legal experts, commenting what they don't know about. However, when the matter goes all the way to the Supreme Court, whatever happens, there's still a window. And that window is for the president. President Tinubu recently granted pardon, granted clemency, and all of that. I think whatever happens at the end of the day, that window is still open to the president of Nigeria in the national interest for peace. To then say, okay, this is the outcome, but the Nigerian government would grant this pardon. The pardon can now be commuted of sentence, it can be whatever, as the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy will decide. Right. So that's what I would recommend. I'm not saying that's what will happen, but let us just allow the process to play out.
I've also heard
and people should not inflame passions.
This is it.
A lot of people say, we will not stand, we will fight. We will not. Maxwell Okpara made the point that, look, whether you are from the east or from wherever, just allow peace to reign.
This is the main point. And your point about, probably the president might find a way to, maybe commute his sentence. You're not the only one that has held this view. I have, heard a bunch of legal experts that have, also expressed that view. I'll take some reactions, Ayo, before I come to you. This person wrote on X characteristics. The recent judgment against Nnamdiikanu has once again reopened the long-standing debate in Nigeria. Why does the Nigerian state seem to treat terrorism, armed agitation, and violent extremism differently, depending on the region from which they emerge? Terrorism should never be celebrated or defended in any form, and anyone who has participated in violent acts against the Nigerian state or its citizens must face the law. However, the unevenness in the application of justice is becoming too glaring to ignore. Over the years, Nigeria has witnessed situations where the government, according to numerous public reports, entered negotiations with armed groups and even reintegrated some individuals back into society, particularly in the northern region. It is disheartening to observe what appears to many Nigerians as sectional approaches to justice. The common saying, what is good for the goose is good for the gander, does not always seem to play out evenly. We may now be witnessing what can be best described as regional and sectarian justice and injustice. Meanwhile, one of the leaders of the Islamic State West Africa province, Hussaini Ismaila, has been convicted of terrorism offenses and sentenced to 20 years imprisonment by a federal high court in Abuja. Justice Emeka Nwite pronounced the sentence on Tuesday after Ismaila, also known as Mai Tangaran, pleaded guilty to a 4-count terrorism charge brought by the Department of State Services. The prosecution said Ismaila coordinated the 2012 attacks on multiple police facilities in Kanu State, in which many were injured following his arrest in August 2017. The trial suffered delays before the DSS called 5 witnesses. Ismaila changed his plea to guilty after the 5th witness testified. Well, you see this? His 20-year sentence will run concurrently from his 2017 arrest date. The judge also ordered Ismaila must undergo rehabilitation and de-radicalization before being reintegrated into the society. And you see why I was able to juxtapose that tweet with this actual story, because this is the agitation from a lot of people, especially also in the Southeast. And, many people who, rightly feel like this was injustice meted on Nnamdiikanu.
Absolutely. And all Nigerians, despite irrespective of region, have to have a voice. And all voices must be listened to, must be heard. I say this because earlier on I'd said that, and that what a number of people have said in some quarters, including saying, the former minority leader of the Senate, Senator Einaya Abaribe, is that it seems as if it was like predetermined, it was an action against the region of the Southeast, that it was selective justice in some quarters. And when you hear cases like this terrorist who was convicted, masterminding acts of terrorism, who was given 20 years, you can then understand why people are saying that. I had to call Mr. Kwara to order earlier on during the interview, because I also don't feel that the ethnic narrative is good for national unity and to not further incite violence or aggression in certain parts. What we're trying to push is the spirit of national unity. But in doing so, part of that is to ensure that there's fairness and justice indeed across all levels, across boards, and there mustn't be a perception that people are treated differently based on which region they belong to. Now, names like the situation that happened with Sunday Igboho is coming up again. People are talking about terrorists from the north who are given 5-year sentences, and people who actually perpetrated large-scale acts of terrorism, giving kids gloves. In some parts, we even saw them being, given amnesty. We talk about rehabilitation, de-radicalization, and you ask, why is the same treatment or suggestion or solution not given to what is happening to Nnamdiikanu and the Southeast? And so these are the questions. I don't agree with giving amnesty